grisly discovery rocks Warnimont Park in Cudahy when a walker stumbles upon Sade Robinson's severed limb washed up on the Lake Michigan coastline. Meanwhile, flames engulfed her vehicle miles away near 30th and Lisbon, while transit surveillance captured Anderson lurking in the vicinity. Is greater than. It was early evening on April 2nd, 2024, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A local resident strolling beneath the bluffs spotted an odd object resting on the sandy shore. Curiosity turned to horror as he approached, the silhouette sharpening into something that froze the blood in his veins. It was a severed human leg, the toenails still coated in bright pink polish. Shaking, he immediately dialed 911. Law enforcement descended on the scene, cordoning off the beach. At that instant, the identity of the victim and the sinister path that led to this shoreline remained a mystery. However, one thing was unmistakably clear. The limb had been removed with precision, not by accident, and the gruesome act was fresh, unbeknownst to the officers, less than 24 hours prior. This young woman was a 19-year-old scholar heading out for an exciting first date. Over the next 48 hours, a dark web of evidence would link this beach finding to a torched Honda Civic abandoned in a north side alleyway. The trail would lead to a beloved daughter reported missing by frantic colleagues and kin, and to a shadowy figure tracked by city cameras prowling the streets before dawn. As the puzzle pieces clicked into place, the investigation exploded outward from the lakefront to encompass woodlands and residential blocks citywide, because authorities realized a terrifying truth. The victim was Sade Carleena Robinson. Is greater than. That man is a demon, and his attorney is just as bad. They are fully aware of his monstrous actions and the devastation he caused. They dragged us through absolute hell. Is greater. Then I refused every plea offer and went straight to trial for one simple reason: I am innocent of these charges. I intend to fight this conviction. But before we dive in, if this story grips you, please hit that like button and share your thoughts on the investigation. Your support makes a huge difference. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're tuning in from today. And make sure to subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching. This content is produced strictly for educational and documentary intent. We do not support, praise, or excuse any of the illegal acts or perpetrators discussed in this narrative. Please be advised, the following material contains disturbing details. Sade Carleena Robinson entered the world on May 10, 2004. Born in Vicksburg, Mississippi, to Sheena Scarborough and Carlos Robinson. As their firstborn, she displayed a fierce spirit of self-reliance that set her apart from the very start. Before she even turned 2, her mother relocated the family to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the city that would become the backdrop for her upbringing. Yet, her world wasn't confined to a single zip code. She split her formative years between the Midwest and her father's home in Florida, mastering the art of adaptation across different environments. During her teen years, she briefly settled in the Sunshine State to attend Ida S. Baker High, but the pull of home was too strong, bringing her back to Milwaukee in late 2019, enrolling at Riverside University High. She wasn't just focused, she was driven, pushing herself to secure her diploma ahead of schedule. That achievement spoke volumes about her character and determination. Following graduation, she matriculated at Milwaukee Area Technical College in 2022, setting her sights on a career in criminal justice. Come spring of 2024, she was on the precipice of success, merely 1 month away from earning her associate's degree in May. At 19, she had her future charted out, but Sade wasn't just a student. She had been a dedicated team member at Pizza Shuttle since 2021. Not stopping there, she held down a second position at the prestigious Wisconsin club. She even paved the way for her younger sister, Adriana Reams, to get hired there. By 19, Sade was fully self-sufficient, driving her own car, renting her own apartment, and paying her own way. Her relentless work ethic shone through in a social media update she posted after a solo vacation to Jamaica in early 2024. Marking her first international journey, she expressed pride in earning the getaway, having balanced 5 college courses with 60 to 80-hour work weeks. Even with that crushing load, she maintained a 3.5 GPA, and her ambition didn't end there. She was actively considering a future in the U.S. Air Force, looking to honor the military legacy of her relatives. However, on April 1st, 2024, with her degree within reach and her potential limitless, she made a fateful decision to meet a stranger. That choice would spark a nightmare. Maxwell Steven Anderson was born on May 26, 1990. By the spring of 2024, the 33-year-old was residing on Milwaukee's south side, near South 39th and Oklahoma. To the casual observer, he was a fixture in the local nightlife, blending seamlessly into the crowd. Over the years, he poured drinks at various hotspots, including the Rave and Duke's on Water. He had even spent time employed at the Twisted Fisherman, the very seafood joint that would eventually become central to this investigation. Patrons saw him as just another guy behind the tap, someone to mix a cocktail, chat for a moment, and clock out when the lights went up. But beneath that veneer lay a troubled past, with a paper trail of court documents predating his encounter with SadeRobinson. In April 2011, Maxwell joined the U.S. Navy, though records indicate his tenure ended abruptly in January 2012. While the specifics of his exit remain murky in public files, his military career was short-lived, sending him back to civilian life in Wisconsin in under a year. From there, his rap sheet started to swell ominously. Between 2014 and 2022, Anderson racked up a laundry list of offenses spanning Waukesha and Milwaukee counties. Legal filings painted a disturbing picture involving public disturbances and chaotic outbursts. The charges ranged from household disputes to getting behind the wheel while under the influence, in a 2014 case involving a relative. He was found guilty of misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Then, in a separate file from 2015 within Milwaukee County, the docket revealed darker accusations linking him to domestic abuse and silencing those who tried to speak up. Police reports piled up with citations for liquor-fueled aggression and hostile standoffs. Although many of these incidents ended with minor convictions or plea deals, they sketched a blueprint of instability that haunted him well into his 30s. Women from his past later recounted experiences that mirrored these official files, describing a man prone to heavy drinking, intense jealousy, and suffocating control. He resided solo at a house on South 39th Street, an unassuming dwelling that would soon transform into the primary crime scene. And then, there was his digital footprint. By early 2024, Maxwell was prowling on various dating platforms like Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble. Cyberforensics later verified that he invested a massive amount of time on these apps, setting up encounters and chatting up women across the Milwaukee region. That electronic trail would prove vital when homicide detectives started piecing together the final, terrifying timeline of SadeRobinson. The reason being, Sade was another match he found online. The pair linked up via an app in the weeks prior to April 1st, 2024. As revealed by phone logs in the courtroom, their banter quickly shifted from the app interface to direct text messaging. They mapped out an itinerary, debated where to grab a bite, and solidified the details for their inaugural date. Absolutely zero red flags popped up in those initial texts to warn her of the impending doom. On the surface, it mirrored a ritual performed by millions daily, two consenting adults simply agreeing to share a meal. By April 1st, the date was set. That morning, she FaceTimed her mom, Sheena Scarborough, and Sade excitedly shared that she had plans with a guy later that night. She put real effort into her look, eventually settling on distressed denim jeans, a crisp, white top, matching shoes, and a black puffy jacket. On her way out, she chatted briefly with the front desk clerk, mentioning casually that she was meeting a stranger for the first time that evening. No alarms went off during that exchange because everything felt standard, safe, and full of youthful optimism. As the afternoon wore on, the logistics were still being finalized through a flurry of messages. At 4:15 in the afternoon, Sade messaged Maxwell Steven Anderson to lock in the meeting spot. a conversation that would eventually become key evidence. She queried him about the venue and the time, and he originally pitched the idea of linking up in the city center. Then he pivoted, claiming he needed to swing by the Twisted Fisherman to grab tax documents from his old job, asking if they could grab food there instead. Sade texted back that she was actually craving seafood, to which he replied, quote, "Sounds good, heading out now. I will be there shortly," unquote. Minutes later, he followed up with, quote, "Just got to Twisted," unquote. She asked, quote, "Okay, are you inside?" unquote. And he fired back a simple, quote, "Yes," unquote. At 9 minutes past 5, security cameras clocked Maxwell pulling into the Twisted Fisherman. 11 minutes later, at 5:20 in the afternoon, Sade pulled up in her Honda Civic. Footage captured her parking the car and strolling inside, where the pair finally met face-to-face at the bar. Employees later corroborated that Maxwell was a former staffer, meaning he knew the building's layout and the crew intimately, a detail that adds a chilling layer to the story. They dined, they chatted, and the drinks kept flowing. Video evidence showed them perched at the bar for roughly 60 minutes, looking completely at ease and deep in conversation with no signs of trouble. To anyone watching, it appeared to be a textbook first date. At approximately 6:29 in the evening, the couple exited the venue together in Sade's vehicle, with her behind the wheel and Maxwell riding shotgun. Traffic cams spotted the car cruising toward downtown Milwaukee, and by 6:35 in the evening, they pulled up to Duke's on Water, a bustling sports pub on North Water Street. Inside, cameras once again caught them ordering rounds and acting casual. At one distinct moment, the camera caught them leaning in, sharing a brief, intimate embrace. They lingered there for hours, drifting between the bar top and the tables, with absolutely nothing betraying the darkness that was about to unfold. Detectives state this is the final verified sighting of Sade Robinson while she was still breathing at 9:24 at night. The Honda Civic was recorded pulling up near Maxwell's residence at South 39th Street and Oklahoma Avenue. A surveillance lens caught the rear gate swinging open as two shadowy figures slipped into the backyard instead of using the front entrance. The video displayed motion matching two individuals heading toward the dwelling before the gate shut, sealing them inside. Digital forensics later proved that Sade's mobile device stayed stagnant at that specific geolocation for roughly 3 hours. Tower pings and GPS data pinpointed her phone within a tiny radius of that house from shortly after 9:24 at night until just past midnight. Throughout that entire window, there were no emergency calls, no indication she ever walked out, and no further footage of her alive. The neighbors reported the night was dead silent, claiming they didn't hear a single thing out of the ordinary. From the street, the house looked peaceful, keeping its secrets until roughly 12:45 in the morning. On April 2nd, activity kicked up again, but Sade was nowhere in sight. Alley cameras only caught the Honda Civic pulling out of the property. There wasn't a single frame of Sade stepping out the door. She effectively vanished, yet her phone began a journey of its own. Digital breadcrumbs from cell towers and apps tracked the device heading south before circling back toward the heart of Milwaukee. At one point, the signal ghosted past her own apartment complex, but cameras verified she never actually made it inside. Instead, the phone kept drifting, cutting through various neighborhoods in the pre-dawn gloom while the city was fast asleep. Just past 1 o'clock in the morning, the device pinged near a wooded stretch along the Milwaukee River, pinpointing the Pleasant Valley Park and Marina Road vicinity. The data suggests it lingered there for a brief window before pushing further east, heading straight for the Lake Michigan coastline. Then, between 2:45 and 3 o'clock in the morning, the location history placed the phone right at Warnimont Park, the grim setting where authorities would later uncover a horrifying piece of evidence. At 2:53 in the morning, surveillance units near the park's entry point recorded a car indistinguishable from Sade's Honda Civic rolling into the grounds. The vehicle smashed right through the gate arm, shattering it, and investigators later found debris matching a Civic scattered on the pavement. A security camera at a nearby pump house picked up a solitary figure marching toward the water's edge at roughly 3:02 in the morning. The grainy video captured the shadowy person, making repeated treks back and forth between the beach and the service road for well over an hour. Detectives later highlighted these constant trips from the car to the water. Noting how the timeline became the key to the entire mystery, the car sat within the park boundaries until about 4:31 in the morning. Finally, it exited and sped off, having kept Sade's phone in that exact area for the entire duration. By 4:35 in the morning, the vehicle had cleared Warnimont Park, and the tracking data showed it weaving through the Milwaukee streets once again. What detectives pieced together was a chilling map of a route that zigzagged across the city during those dark, early hours. And around 7:30 that morning, Milwaukee County Emergency Services started getting frantic calls about a car ablaze near 29th Street and Lisbon Avenue. One local resident later recounted the terrifying sounds that caught her attention. She mentioned hearing a car alarm wailing, followed by a deafening bang that sounded just like a bomb going off. She told the press the vehicle was torching rapidly and didn't look like an accident, seeing the cabin fully consumed by flames. She dialed for help instantly. Firefighters rushed to the scene and doused the inferno, leaving behind the charred skeleton of a Honda Civic. While the interior was completely incinerated, the outside still held enough clues for identification. Police managed to salvage the registration sticker, which allowed them to pull up the owner's details in record time. The registered owner was listed as Sade Carleena Robinson. In the boot of the car, investigators found scraps of fabric and the melted remains of an iPhone that had been cooked by the heat. Evidence inside the cabin suggested the blaze was started on purpose, instantly escalating the case from a disappearance to a major criminal inquiry. By this time, detectives were already buzzing about the gruesome find at Warnimont Park from hours before. A dark theory began to form that these two nightmare scenarios were inextricably linked. Meanwhile, as the sun rose on April 2nd, Sade failed to show up for her scheduled shift at Pizza Shuttle. She was famous for her punctuality, so the crew noticed immediately. Her boss, Justin Romano, confirmed she never skipped a day without a heads up. When call after call went straight to voicemail, a wave of panic began to set in. All morning long, her team sent texts and dialed her number, but they were met with dead silence. Later that day, a close friend known as A.J. drove over to check on her personally, and upon arriving at Sade's complex, she spotted a red flag instantly. Her Honda Civic was missing from its usual parking spot. She pounded on the door and shouted her name, but got no reply, and that heavy silence forced A.J. to call the cops for a welfare check. Patrol units arrived and entered the unit, only to find the place empty. Nothing looked out of place or tossed around, so without further leads, they couldn't say for sure what had gone down, while the authorities were running their protocols. Sade's family had already launched their own desperate search. Her mom, Sheena Scarborough, along with a tight circle of kin and friends, logged into Life 360, the app Sade used to share her whereabouts. They pulled up the tracking history and retraced her path from the night before. The digital map plotted her course from the downtown eateries to a house on South 39th Street, and then, in the dead of night, to random spots all over Milwaukee. Her phone broadcasted one final signal from Warnimont Park before the battery gave out completely. Law enforcement was still filing it as a standard disappearance. But the family wasn't waiting. They rushed to the park, combing through the woods and the water's edge on their own. They paced the cliffside, staring out at the lake, desperately trying to interpret the GPS data flashing on their screens. They had no idea that a gruesome discovery had already been made in that very spot. It was 5:29 in the afternoon. On April 2nd, a chilling call came into Milwaukee County Dispatch. A bystander had stumbled upon a severed human leg lying on the beach at Warnimont. Police swarmed the location, taping it off as detectives started working a site that had undeniably become a grim crime scene. The limb had been removed right below the hip joint, and the medical examiner immediately spotted jagged cut marks surrounding the separation point. Even the femur showed evidence of being sawed, suggesting someone used a heavy-duty blade with significant repeated force to get through the bone. "How are you doing? What is going on?" "All right, so this here is Evan Millies. He is, well, usually a decent guy. Found himself in a bit of a mess a few times. But overall, he is solid. Got it. So, they hiked down that S-curve coming off Sheridan. They headed south, just looking to enjoy a breezy day down by the water. They were walking right there and spotted the leg. Said it was originally lying near the end of that branch over there. Near those bushes, yeah. They claimed they saw it higher up. Sounds like it was up the hill a bit. Understood. So he and his friend, who was sitting in my patrol car, walked out and made the call. By the time we got back here, it was, I do not know, maybe 7 feet. 7 feet east of that rock. I secured it to preserve the evidence. Okay, so it would not get washed out. Right. And I made sure to get thorough body cam footage from multiple angles of the original spot. Okay. Excellent. All right. Let's do this. Can you take me to the location? Follow me this way. Yup. Yeah. Is this the first time you have encountered something like this out here? Yes. First time you have ever seen anything quite like this. At that point, police couldn't officially say the remains were Sade Robinson's, but the pieces were fitting together. The Life 360 ping and the torched car found that morning painted a grim picture. Forensic teams immediately rushed samples to the lab for DNA analysis. While detectives were still scrubbing through camera feeds and analyzing call logs, the lab report arrived. It was a match for Sade. In an instant, the desperate hunt for a missing 19-year-old girl transformed into a confirmed homicide investigation. The goal was no longer rescue, it was reconstruction. They were now piecing together a brutal crime that had already happened. The evidence board was filling up a scorched car. Scattered remains found miles apart. Digital footprints, tracking movement across town, and one last person seen with her. Then, footage from the public transit system added a critical new dimension to the timeline. A Milwaukee County bus camera caught a figure dressed exactly like Maxwell walking away from the specific zone where the burnt-out Honda Civic was later found. The subject was clad in a dark zippered hoodie and was hauling a tan backpack over his shoulder. He paid his fare with cash and hopped off near Lakefield Drive, which just happens to be a short stroll from his front door. But the trail didn't end there. Detectives also secured physical debris. Upon inspecting the entrance to Warnimont Park, they found shattered pieces of a vehicle. Forensics later matched those shards directly to a Honda Civic. Consistent with the model Sade drove, it confirmed that her car had clipped the gate while being driven into the park under the cover of darkness. With the case building against him, police obtained a warrant to raid Maxwell Anderson's home at 3161 South 39th Street. Inside, they discovered bloodstains on the bedding and smears on a wall near the staircase heading down to the basement. However, later forensic analysis threw a curveball. The blood did not belong to Sade. It turned out to be from a dog. But despite that, the combination of blood traces and industrial cleaning supplies raised serious alarms about what might have happened in that house. Searching the garage and storage zones, officers uncovered several containers full of gasoline. This aligned perfectly with the method used to destroy the vehicle found earlier that day. Prosecutors would later use this to argue that the car fire wasn't an accident, but a calculated act of destruction. While this was happening, the discovery of more biological evidence kicked the investigation into high gear. On April 5th, in a thicket near 31st and Galena, not far from the burnt car, search teams found a left foot featuring pink nail polish, matching the remains found at the park. They also recovered other human tissue samples in the immediate vicinity. Every new find confirmed the grim reality that Sade's remains had been dispersed across the city, requiring a massive effort to process, document, and search each distinct crime scene. The horror continued to unfold on April 18th, when a passerby walking the shores of Lake Michigan near 335 Marina Road stumbled upon a nightmarish scene: a human torso and an arm washed up on the sand. Law enforcement immediately secured the grim findings for forensic analysis, which ultimately confirmed the heartbreaking truth: these were indeed the remains of Sade. By this stage of the investigation, detectives had pieced together a gruesome collection consisting of a right leg, a left foot, a torso, and an arm. Yet the victim's head remained missing. Flashback to April 4th, 2000. merely 48 hours after the first grisly discovery. At Warnimont Park, police intercepted the suspect during a traffic stop just blocks from his home. Police body cameras recorded the tense moments of his detention. And on April 12, 2024, 10 days into this nightmare, prosecutors officially leveled charges against Maxwell Steven Anderson. The accusations brought against him were chilling in their severity and precision. He faced counts of first-degree intentional homicide, the mutilation of a corpse, arson, and the concealing of a corpse. The criminal complaint detailed a damning web of evidence, weaving together a digital footprint, surveillance recordings, and physical traces recovered from several crime scenes. The court set his bail at a staggering $5 million cash, ensuring he would remain behind bars pending trial unless he could produce the entire sum. As the legal battle intensified, the state built its case on what they termed an unbroken chain of electronic data and video surveillance. Assistant District Attorney Ian Vance Curran characterized the murder and subsequent actions as acts of the absolute highest level of violence imaginable, emphasizing to the jury that the scattered clues were not random, but deeply interconnected. However, the defense team, spearheaded by attorney Anthony Cotton, fiercely contested the state's narrative. Cotton insisted that the prosecution had fallen short of proving the specific intent necessary to secure a conviction for first-degree intentional homicide. He underscored the fact that no camera recorded the actual killing, nor was there any audio evidence revealing what transpired inside the residence. Furthermore, the defense noted that not a single neighbor reported hearing screams or signs of a violent struggle that evening. Cotton pointed out that when Anderson took public transit following the car fire, he made no attempt to hide his face and appeared clean, contradicting the state's claim that he had just been trekking through a muddy park. The defense argued that the authorities were connecting dots based on circumstantial guesses rather than solid proof of murderous intent. The high-stakes trial finally commenced on May 27, 2025, over a year after the suspect was first taken into custody. Throughout the proceedings, the jury absorbed harrowing testimony from lead detectives, along with forensic specialists and witnesses who recounted the traumatic discovery of the body parts and the scorched vehicle. They meticulously examined cellular records, GPS location pings, and security footage harvested from numerous cameras. The prosecution demonstrated how Sade's final known locations mirrored Anderson's movements perfectly, narrowing the timeline of the crime to a critical 3-hour window inside his house. Then, on June 6, 2025, after deliberating for a mere 45 minutes, the jury reached their decision. On every single count, Maxwell Steven Anderson was declared guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, arson, and hiding a corpse. This verdict brought the trial phase to a close. And on August 1, 2025, the judge handed down a sentence of life imprisonment. Under Wisconsin statutes, this life sentence came with zero possibility of parole unless a court intervenes in the distant future, as the judge applied the maximum penalty available. When granted the chance to address the court prior to sentencing, Anderson refused to admit guilt. He declared, "I did not commit these crimes, and consequently, I fully intend to appeal my convictions. I want to begin by expressing that, from the bottom of my heart, I offer my deepest and most sincere condolences to Sade's family, as well as to everyone else who has been impacted by this tragedy. That said, Your Honor, I proceeded to trial without ever considering a plea bargain because I am innocent of these charges. Therefore, I plan to fight these convictions, hoping and praying that future investigations will not only vindicate me, but also uncover the truth and deliver actual justice." "Is there anything else you wish to add?" the judge asked. "No, ma'am," he replied. However, the devastation wrought on April 1st and 2nd, 2024, echoed far beyond the legal system. The victim's mother then took the stand. "Yes, Your Honor, first, I want to thank you and the entire team for supporting us through what we had to endure, which was absolute hell. It was pure torture to be dragged through the details of this nightmare. This monster and his arrogant attorney, they knew exactly what he did and exactly what he was responsible for. They forced us to relive extreme agony and pain when we were already drowning in so much trauma. There is no such thing as justice considering what you did to my daughter and what you have inflicted upon my family. I have worked myself to the bone for over 20 years to raise the most beautiful, angelic children who do nothing but bring light to this world. My daughter had the misfortune of crossing your evil path. You plotted and planned to take her life and tear her apart. And then you disrespectfully scattered my daughter across Milwaukee as if she were garbage. How dare you? My daughter was my entire world. She was everything to all of us. Just as my baby girl said, she left a distinct mark on every single life she touched. I've had complete strangers, people I've never seen before, come up to me and say she changed their world. This tragedy didn't just hit our neighborhood, it sent shockwaves through the entire community. There is no reason on earth we should be standing here, dragged through this circus of a trial. You knew exactly what you did. You are heartless. And your mommy and daddy, those monsters who raised you, I've got something for them later, is greater than across Milwaukee. The streets turned pink, Sade's favorite color, marking a city in mourning. Days after she vanished. And again, when the worst was confirmed, crowds flooded the street outside Maxwell Anderson's house for what they called a pink out. Over at the pizza shuttle, where she worked, the crew kept watching the door that morning of April 2nd, praying she'd walk in. Now, a mural stands there in her memory. Customers stop by just to snap a picture or leave a heartbreaking note on the wall. Her boss remembers her as the light of the room, the one who always told everyone else to get home safe after a long shift. That warning haunts them now. To keep her legacy alive, they launched a scholarship for the kids at Riverside University High. For the family, that fund isn't just about money, it is about keeping her spirit alive. It means that even though her time was stolen, her kindness can still push someone else toward a better future. But no amount of tributes can fix the messy, layered grief left behind. For weeks, strangers scoured the beaches and woods, hunting for evidence, desperate to give the family some semblance of peace. Police boats dragged the waters of Lake Michigan, recovering pieces of a nightmare: a leg, a foot, a torso, and an arm. Yet, the haunting question remained, did they ever really find all of her? Sade's mother, Sheena, didn't hold back her pain. In her darkest moment, she compared this horror to a modern-day Jeffrey Dahmer case, ripping open Milwaukee's old wounds and demanding justice for every missing woman the system ignored. She pointed out the hard truth that girls of color vanish without the cameras showing up and swore her family would never be silenced. Her father, Carlos, recalled the split second. The DNA results came in and his entire reality shattered. He spoke of a physical crushing weight in his chest, the unique agony of losing his firstborn child. She changed his life the day she arrived, and he held on to hope until that final phone call. And that is where this tragic chapter closes. Does this case sit right with you? Sound off in the comments below. If this story gave you chills, we have more deep dives into true crime on the channel. Make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and share this video. It is the only way to keep their names from fading away. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.